Hello everyone, this is me Muhammad Faris. You can call me Faris with ID number 2023 24 47 28.
This is me, Lutfiatul Azizah with ID number 2023 21 59 82. And my name is Ayu and my ID number is 2023 43 7 and 40. Open-Economy Macroeconomics and Expenditure-Changing Policy. In the realm of Open-Economy Macroeconomics, internal balance refers to achieving full employment, while external balance pertains to the equilibrium of the balance of payments, where autonomous inflow and outflow are equal. It's crucial to recognize that the coexistence of internal and external balance is often a matter of coincidence as articulated in the introductory quote. Moreover, it has been observed that certain automatic adjustment to balance of payment imbalance can incur significant costs. Consequently, government may find it necessary to implement adjustment policy to either bolster or counteract this automatic adjustment. Government have a diverse array of policies at their disposal to influence employment and the balance of payment. This policy can be categorized into expenditure-changing policy, expenditure-switching policy, and direct control. Today, my colleagues Faris, Ayu, and I are excited to present to you a comprehensive overview of an economy macroeconomic expenditure-changing policy. We will delve into the various components of expenditure policy, multiplier effect, international trade, balance adjustment, and economic stability. Furthermore, we will analyze a case study to apply this concept in real-world context. Without further ado, let's delve into the intricacy of economic principles. In this slide, we will introduce the concept of an open economy. An open economy is one that engages in the international trade, allowing the flow of goods, services, and capital across borders. We also discuss the importance of international trade in an open economy. International trade encourages specialization, boosts efficiency, expands market, and has a positive impact on economic growth and development. Expenditure component. This slide will dive into expenditure component with an open economy covering four main components. Consumption, repressing household spending on goods and services. And the next is investment, signifies businesses expenditure for capital goods, and the government expenditure denote spending by the public sector. And the next export is export minus import, reflect the difference between a country export and import. Additionally, it discusses how change in this component significantly affect overall output, national income in the economy. Impact of expenditure component changes. It's crucial to recognize that change in this component have a substantial impact on the overall output and national income in the economy. These changes can have far-reaching consequences for the economic performance of a country. Accordingly, expenditure-changing policy are tools that alter the level of economic activity, typically measured by the price level and or the level of the real GDP or real income by managing aggregate demand. Expenditure policy. Various expenditure policy. First is fiscal policy. These are government action concerning taxation and spending. And the monetary policy. These are actions taken by central bank to regulate money supply and interest rate. And influence of policy on expenditure component is this policy aimed to stimulate or restrain specific expenditure component, and the effect of policy on the economy in this policy have a significant impact on economic stability, inflation, employment, and overall growth. Expenditure-changing policy include fiscal and monetary policy. Fiscal policy involves the use of the spending and taxing function of government. An expansionary fiscal policy is one that increases aggregate demand by lowering taxes or increasing government spending. Conversely, a contractionary fiscal policy is one that reduces aggregate demand by increasing taxes and decreasing government spending. Monetary policy, on the other hand, is the management of a nation's money supply by the nation's central bank. An expansionary monetary policy is one that increases the money supply leading to lower interest rate and increased borrowing for spending. This increased spending raises aggregate demand and the equilibrium level of output. In contrast, a contractionary monetary policy raises interest rate through reduction in the money supply, lowering spending and equilibrium income. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic led to significant changes in expenditure-changing policy as government worldwide implement measures to address the economic impact of the crisis. Fiscal policies: many governments introduced expansionary fiscal policy to stimulate their economies. This involved increased government spending on healthcare, social support, and economic stimulus package. Additionally, some countries implement tax cuts to provide relief to businesses and individuals. And the monetary policy: central banks around the world adopt expansionary monetary policies by lowering interest rates and implementing quantitative easing programs. These measures aim to encourage borrowing, investment, and consumer spending to support economic recovery. The COVID-19 pandemic served as a compelling example of how changes in expenditure-changing policy, such as fiscal and monetary policy, were crucial in addressing the economic challenges and supporting overall output and national income during a global crisis.
Okay, for the next is multiplier effect. In the second, we have multiplier concept in the context of an open economy. And secondly, we have how change in the spending trigger a domino effect on national output. So, for the first, we have a definition. The multiplier effect refers to an economic concept that explains how a change in the spending or investment can have greater impact on overall economy, income, and production. This concept applies primarily in the context of aggregate expenditure and national income. So, in the today global economy world, the multiplier concept plays an important role in understanding how change in the spending can trigger a domino effect on national output. In the multiplier concept, originally developed by British economist John Maynard Keynes, reflect the complex relationship between changes in the spending and their impact on the level economy output. In the multiplier effect can be also explained as a process in which changes in initial expenditure create wave in additional changes in the level of expenditure and national income. So, for especially on open economy, there are two types of multiplier that can be observed. There are expenditure multiplier and also trade multiplier. And the spending multiplier take into account the impact of changes in the government spending, investment, or consumption on the level economy output. So when the country experience increase in the government spending or investment, and for example, they will result increasing production or goods and service. This effect can be stimulate demand for production factors such as labor and create additional income for society. On the other hand, trade multiplier refers to impact of change of export and import on national output level. Countries that experience increases export will experience further economic growth due to increases international demand for their product. So, maybe can be next. Objective performance multiplier effect. In the first, we have identify changes in the income. The first aim of carry out the multiplier effect is to identify changes in the income. These changes occur due to regulatory variable in case such as consumption to investment. And secondly, we have knowing the economic gap. By knowing the number and the formula for the multiplier effect, we can find out whether there are gap in the country's economy system. There are many factors that cause inequality from inflation to deflation. In the last, we have decision-making guidelines. Another benefit of the multiplier effect is that it serves as a reference or guides when making economy decisions. These policies implemented are able to provide positive for benefit for society. So for the next is about the effect multiplier drive. In the context, in open economy, the multiplier effect is a process that describes how change in the aggregate spending can lead to largest change in the national output. This multiplier effect arises due to the interaction between the domestic and foreign sector. And simply, the multiplier can be described as follows. In the first, we have exchange in aggregate expenditure. Aggregate expenditure about describe how changes in aggregate spending can lead to largest changes in national output. So also in the exchange in aggregate spending, such as investment or export, will lead to directly increase in the national output. The increase in national output will lead to increase in the national income, and the national income will lead to increase in the consumption, and also the increase in the consumption will lead to further increase in the aggregate spending. So maybe can next about how changes in the production triggering a domino effect on national output. In the first, we have expenditure channel. In the expenditure channel is the most direct channel in the multiplier effect process. Changes in the aggregate spending, such as investment or export, will directly increase the national output. And so in the secondly, we have income channel. In the income channel, describe how channel in aggregate spending can lead to increase the national income. The increases the national income will so lead to increased consumption. And the last is import channel. In the import channel, describe how change the aggregate spending can lead to increase in import, and the increases import will lead also to an outflow of funds from the economy, ultimately reducing the multiplier effect. And also in the international trade, we have impact of expenditure policy on the trade balance, and also how change spending can be affect export and import. And the impact expenditure policy on trade balance. Spending policies such as fiscal and monetary policies can affect a country's trade balance. In the explanatory fiscal policy, involving increased government spending or reduced tax for can be lead to higher national income and consumption. This is in turn can cause increased import, ultimately contributing to a trade deficit. And the explanatory fiscal policy stimulate national income and consumption. Increases national income translate to higher demand for goods and services, including import. Actually, like a ways increasing consumption lead to greater demand for goods and also services, and composing in also import also. So for the next is about how change in the spending affect in export and import. Changes in aggregate spending can influence export and import through several channels. In the first, we have a income channel. About in the higher national income translate to increased demand for goods and services. This result in both increase to also export and import. And secondly, we have price channel. And the elevated demand for goods and services can lead to price increases. This make domestically produced goods and services more competitive in the international market and potentially boosting export. And the last, we have exchange value. The increasing demand for a country currency can strengthen to exchange rate. This make imported goods and the services more expensive, potentially reducing.
So here I will explain about balance adjustment balance of payment, which is divided into two important explanation points. The first is the role of foreign exchange rates in open economic adjustment. The second is how spending policies can affect exchange rates and their impact on export and import. Let's start from the definition. So the foreign exchange rate is the exchange rate of one country's currency against another country's currency. This exchange rate has a crucial role in the adjustment of an open economy. And there are two functions of foreign exchange rates in the balance of payments. The first, impact on export and import. Foreign exchange rates affect the competitiveness of a country's export and import product. Currency depreciation can make export products cheaper and increase competitiveness in international market. The second, effect on foreign debts and receivables. Foreign exchange rate also affect the value of debts and receivables dominant in a foreign currency. Changes in exchange rates can have a significant impact on a country's financial liabilities and assets. The third, foreign investment. Foreign exchange rate can influence foreign investor interest in investing in a country. Changes in currency values can impact profit or losses for foreign investors. And the question now is how spending policies can affect exchange rate and their impact on export and import. Let's start from the effect of expenditure policy on the balance of payments. The first, public and private expenditure. Expenditure policies, whether carried out by the government or the private sector, can influence aggregate demand and have the potential to trigger changes in the balance of payments. The second, inflation and deflation. Spending policies that cause inflation or deflation can impact currency exchange rates. High inflation can lead to currency depreciation, while deflation can lead to appreciation. Next, regarding impact on export and import. The first, increased spending. Spending policies that increase domestic purchasing power can increase export if domestic goods and services are more competitive. The second, effect on import. Spending policies that stimulate economic growth can increase import due to increased domestic demand for foreign goods and services. Well, in the material relationship between expenditure policy and economic stability in the context of an open economy, there are four sub-discussions that we will discuss. The first, definition of the economic stability. The second, expenditure policy and macroeconomic stability. The third is impact on export and import. And the last one is impact on currency exchange rates. And now, we start with the definition of economic stability. Economic stability refers to a state in which a country's economy functions smoothly, without extreme fluctuation in the rate of economic growth, inflation, or unemployment rates. Economic stability is the main goal of economic policy to achieve economic prosperity and resilience. Expenditure policy includes actions that taken by the government to manage the level of expenditure in society, including government expenditure and public consumption. And on this slide, I will explain about open economic context and stability. The first, influence of globalization. In an open economy, domestic spending can be influenced by global factors, such as fluctuation in international commodity prices and changes in global economic demand. The second, dependence on export and import. Countries that rely heavily on international trade must take into account the impact of spending policies on export and import. Policies that stimulate domestic consumption may affect the trade balance. And the impact on currency exchange rate is true. The first on exchange rate and expenditure policies. Expenditure policies that stimulate economic growth can influence currency exchange rates. Investors may be interested if economic growth expectations are positive. And the second, the balance of payment challenge. An increase in spending that is not matched by an increase in export can cause a balance of payment deficit, which can put pressure on the currency exchange rate. And now we have the study case that relate with our topic. So this case study involves three central banks, Central Bank of Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand, which agreed to strengthen cooperation to encourage the use of each country's local currency in bilateral transactions between Indonesia and Thailand, Indonesia and Malaysia, and Thailand and Malaysia. The deal includes expanding the use of local currencies in broader cross-border transactions, involving direct trade and investment covered since 2018. And what is the impact of this policy is in several aspects. The first, in aspect bilateral trade stimulation. By increasing the use of local currency in bilateral transactions, trade between Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand can experience stimulation. This policy can change the structure of expenditure in trade and has the potential to increase the volume of trade between the three countries. The second aspect is strengthening local currency. By expanding the use of local currency, this policy can support the strengthening of each country's national currency. The use of local currencies in bilateral transactions can increase demand for those currencies, potentially increasing exchange rates and currency stability. And the third aspect is increased direct investment. Through expanding the scope of direct investment, this policy can lead to increased direct investment between countries. This can create an expansionary impact on the investment component of aggregate spending. And the last aspect is transaction efficiency. Synergy with cross-border payment system initiative can increase the efficiency of transactions in local currencies. This can reduce transaction costs and speed up transaction settlement, encouraging more economic actors to use local currencies in trading activities. So that's all our presentation about our material. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.